Hello everyone, welcome to Skills Tech Talk. Today I'll talk about React Lifecycle. I'll talk about what's the React Lifecycle, then I'll dive into the three main categories to make it easy to remember the React Lifecycle methods. And I'll dive into the details of each method and explain what it does and how and when to use it. Now, what's the React Lifecycle? It's really the set of actions a React component goes through throughout its existence. So as you create a component, there are a set of steps that the component will go through, and that's basically what the React Lifecycle is. The three main categories of actions will be mounting, updating, and unmounting. Mounting meaning that's when we add a component to the DOM. Updating is when we update the DOM. So we re-render a component in the DOM, and unmounting is that's when we remove an element or a component from the DOM. So the three main categories make it easy for us to remember. We have four methods in the mounting action. The four methods, the first one being the constructor, and we'll go into the details of each of those. The component will mount, render, and the component did mount. So this is something to remember. Constructor, component will mount, render, and component did mount. And then for when you update a component, we have component will receive props. Should component update, component will update, and then we can render again. You see here, I didn't count that. So because it's already counted in mounting, and then component did update. So the way to look at it is render is used whether you're mounting or updating. So whether you're creating a new component or you're just updating it. While everything else, constructor, component will mount, component did mount, and the rest of them are really specific to creating a component and updating the component. And the final one, of course, being unmounting. That's component will unmount. Now, this is really high level. These are the hooks that allows you to read the state and the props and also all the changes in order to update your UI. Now, let's dive into the details so we understand how they actually work. All right, cool. Let's begin. The first thing is the constructor. Here, what happens is the minute you decide to create a component, you start from scratch. You initialize your component. And here you set the initial set of values that will go into the component. Then component will mount is called. Component will mount is the method you call before anything else. So before you even make you render anything, before anything happens, it's just telling you that I will soon mount the component. That's when this action is triggered or this method is triggered. And then we render. From here, basically what would happen is you've created the object and it's being presented. So when do I use will mount? Sometimes I use will mount when I want to get the data, for instance, making a backend call before even presenting the object, before even rendering anything. Now, there is a next step being component did mount. That one basically will be the case where, let's say you want to draw the table first, and then you want to fetch the data to present that. So there will be a quick update and then the data will be refreshed. So you'll have a table that with no data and then you'll make the update. Sometimes you may just want to do that because you have a page with lots of components and you don't want it to look, almost empty because you're fetching data in the background. So what you want to do is you render the empty components before fetching the data. That's when I use component did mount. Otherwise, you can fetch the data or perform some actions in component will mount. Now, what happens after that? We wait. So here, nothing happens. We're waiting for an action, a prop change, or a user interaction. Here we wait. Then after that, what happens? Well, we have the option of using component will receive props. In here, the assumption is that there is a prop that's being passed to a component that will change. So it basically lets you know that the prop has changed. You were passing a value, it's no longer the same. It will let you know here, and it gives you the option of observing the data, of doing something, but nothing happens. Then there is another method, should component update. This is almost like a question, should we update the component or not? So this gives you the option. You have two options. The first one is to say, nope, I don't want to update anything. So we go back to the initial state. We're still waiting. Nothing happens. The image doesn't change. Nothing happens. But if you decide to change, because we've noticed that not only a prop has changed, but we have seen a new state and we've decided, yep, I want to change this, then what would happen is we'll end up, calling component will update. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you can get to should component update from either component will receive props because a prop has changed and it will call should component update, or from waiting. So from the waiting state, you can also have an instance where it basically says, yes, a state has changed, not a prop, but a state has changed. Should you update? And you have the same option of saying true or false. When you respond with a true, basically you'll have the return value being true. You'll end up going to the next step. Component will update. You can intercept this and do something else if you wanted to do some additional changes. Otherwise, you re-render. So this is rendering or re-rendering. The component was already presented, and now you have the option of rendering it or re-rendering it. Now, from there, once it's been updated, you can say, well, component did update, and the component has been updated. There is something else I'd like to change, something else I want to verify, something else I want to add. This is where you intercept that in component did update. From there, we also wait again. So what we've seen is that on the left, we have the creation. On the right, we have the updates. So everything on the left from constructor, component will mount, render, and component did mount is all about creating the component. And what we've seen in the middle and on the right is related to the update. Now, someone asks, so, and then what happens? Well, what happens is you have the option of also unmounting a component. So there is an additional function where you may be able to clean things up. You may be able to remove an interval timer that you've added to your browser. So you have many options. So the last method would be the component will unmount that you call before the end, before destroying the component. So I hope this made it a little clear for you. If you have questions, please comment below. Please subscribe to this channel. I hope this was very clear for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and by commenting below, I'll make sure to respond very fast in a timely manner. Thanks again for your time. See you next time.